Well, hello, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here, and our next trolley stop is now. Welcome back to another all-new episode of PR from the Heart's Children's Book Spotlight Series. To be precise, we have reached episode number 243. That is the 243rd trolley stop here at PR from the Heart, here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series as part of our summer reading season. My name is John Masiulionis, the manager of PR from the Heart and the host of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, along with the author of the new children's book, Walking Each Other Home, Zachary's Mission, A Hospice for Children, published by Trolley Stop Publishing, joined as always by my faithful furry friend and forever companion, my little pride and joy, little Forrest, who is reminding everyone, little Forrest is reminding all of you, first things first, he hopes that all of you had, if you're watching this in real time, a happy 4th of July, a happy Canada Day to all of our friendly friends and neighbors from the north. He's also reminding me that he is not only my faithful furry friend and forever companion, but he's also my co-host on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. We hope that all of you are doing well wherever you are and wherever you may be. One of the main reasons why little Forrest and I really cherish the summer is because we can take the time, and we've referred to this in different ways, shapes, and forms here on the program previously, but about enjoying the little things. But specifically, one of the things that we tend to do here on the program is we can kind of tunnel a little bit further. And if you're wondering, like, little Forrest and John, what do you mean by tunneling? The importance to note that, for summer, they say that baseball is America's pastime, right? During the summer, if you're a baseball fan, whether you're a Dodgers fan or a Padres fan in the process, we got all bases covered here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. If you're a baseball fan, you're all about hitting the home runs and the grand slams, especially. If you're a fan, you love when your favorite player hits a home run or a grand slam. But what if we invite you to enjoy life's singles, life's doubles, life's triples? And you might be wondering, okay, I'm kind of getting with the path. I'm kind of getting with the program here. We are doing our part through this particular trolley stop to remind all of you of the importance of the small and the monumental, the big and the small, to be able to enjoy every single thing, every treasured memory, every treasured moment along the way, because in many respects, this moment is special. And if you really need an actual real life representation to remind you that this moment is special, then boy, do we have you covered here on this particular episode of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. Again, we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, the fellow shining stars, to head on over to the official website of our featured guest here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series, which we have included in the description below. If Amazon.com is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, you can, of course, leave a 5-star review for This Moment is Special, a Día de Muertos story that is now available courtesy of our friends and neighbors through Simon and Schuster. One of the many ways you can pledge your support for our featured guest here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series is to leave a 5-star review for This Moment is Special that lets him know that he's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and for those who love great children's books. While you are also on Amazon, if that is your favorite online vehicle of your choosing, you can also leave a 5-star review for Eloisa's Musical Window. That is our featured guest's newly illustrated children's book. It's been a little bit of time since he's last appeared here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. Again, if you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, and they do not stock their copies of This Moment is Special, a Día de Muertos story, or Eloisa's Musical Window, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series as part of our summer reading season. And of course, as well, all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, one of the best ways that you can make the 2025-2026 school year a phenomenal one is to be able to secure an author's school visit with one of our favorite neighbors, not only at the Children's Book Spotlight Series, is a longstanding member of the PR from the Heart family. And again, every time he's on the program, he's a history maker. He's a record breaker, in fact, because this is actually now his 6th time on the Children's Book Spotlight series. So one for the thumb, as the expression goes. If he keeps going, he can have as many rings as Tom Brady. He may already be there in many respects, ways, shapes, and forms. So the trolley's traveling, of course, from San Diego to the city that never sleeps, the Big Apple, New York City, joining us as part of the launch of his new children's book, This Moment is Special, a Dia de Muertos story. I'm so excited. You can get tongue-tied every now and again. Of course, you know him as award-winning artist, illustrator, and children's book author, John Parra. John, appreciate you spending some quality time with little Forrest and I coming off the heels of the 4th of July. How are things with you today?
Oh, very good, John. Thank you for having me again. It's a pleasure to be back.
Of course, we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars. One of the many ways you can also pledge your support for John, this particular episode of the Children's Book Spotlight series, and PR from the Heart as a whole. We are counting down to 30,000 subscribers on our official YouTube channel, our loyal members of the PR from the Heart family. If you are new to the program, or if you're new to John's work, or if you've been following us for a long period of time, both PR from the Heart and John respectively, and you just forgot to click that subscribe button, now's the perfect time to be able to do so. So we encourage you, if you haven't had the opportunity to do so, or if you're just finding out about the Children's Book Spotlight series and John Parra's work, you can, of course, subscribe to PR from the Heart's official YouTube channel as well. Share this very special trolley stop on your favorite social media platforms of your choosing. There's a lot of people across the country and around the world that do not believe that this moment is special because we are living in some very interesting times, to say the least, John. And this is it's great to be able to reconnect. I know 2 years since you last joined us, almost to the day in this particular fashion, when, of course, you and Dr. Michael Genhardt did phenomenal work as well with your children's book, Spanish is the Language of My Family. And again, congratulations on the success of all of that. I really feel that this message is needed more than ever. And it's interesting because, you know, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here on the Children's Book Spotlight series, but oftentimes we need those friendly reminders in the midst of the busyness, in the midst of life. For those who are learning about your work for the first time, if you kind of want to just give us a little bit of and I think Cliff's Notes, maybe that's when you were growing up, when I was growing up, you know, if you didn't read the full book, you had to read the Cliff's Notes version. There's always the origin stories that we share here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. So before we talk about This Moment is Special, we'll put a pin in that. We'll circle back on that. Could you let our new listeners and viewers know exactly what brought you to the dance? What was your origin story? What really connected you into the world of children's literature?
Well, when I was growing up, I mean, at a very young age, I was always interested in art. And I remember my parents especially were a huge influence, especially at a very young, you know, because my father was an amateur artist who loved to draw. And so we'd spend times, you know, anytime we were at a restaurant or something, they'd have those sort of paper napkin type things. And he would draw a story and talk about stories about his time in the army or when he was young and playing baseball and all sorts of really great ideas. And so as a young creative person, I was fascinated by this. I thought this was the coolest thing ever. And so he was kind of like my first artist mentor, looking up to him. And then my mom, who was a school teacher for more than 30 years, loved books. And so she would take us to the libraries. And again, you know, at an early age, I would look at picture books, and especially because I was a visual learner as well. And so I was drawn to the images, drawn to the artwork and looking at the pictures. And I still remember vividly, you know, those stories, especially artists like Virginia Lee Burton and others who I just would like almost examine the artwork and think about it and process it. And I just thought it was fascinating. And so, of course, I wanted to kind of emulate those sort of inspirations and continue on a path that has sort of taken me, you know, all the way in my 53 years of living to where I am now. And but I still hold on to those early memories as that's what really kind of got me started. And then, of course, art school and wonderful teachers and mentors and people along the way and good friends and colleagues. I mean, we don't do this alone. It's definitely a team effort, and you surround yourself with good people and wonderful inspirations. And you work hard at it, and that's kind of where you have to kind of to be. And so that's kind of where it's come to fruition. So I started doing children's books about little more than 20 years ago now, even though I've been a professional illustrator for 27. And it's just been an incredible journey, and I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful to be a part of this.
John, one of the reasons why every time you're aboard the program, even though to some it may seem like a broken record, like tell us where you came from, tell us your origin story, the connection that you have with your family, especially your mom and your dad, and the way in which you're keeping their memory and their legacy alive. I had the honor of meeting your mom, actually, when we had a beautiful meal at in La Jolla. It was at the oh gosh, the outdoor rooftop juice bar restaurant. The name has escaped me. Trilogy Sanctuary. That's the place. One of my favorite spots in La Jolla. But just knowing the fact that you're keeping their memory and their legacy alive with each story that you're sharing, with each book, because in many respects, one of the connective threads with all of your work is the tie-in to family and the tie-in to community. Before we talk about those two threads itself, what does that mean for you? And, always at the very end of the program, we'll kind of circle back to this at the very end of the show, but Fred Rogers, very big inspiration for us here at PR from the Heart and the Children's Book Spotlight series. He always encouraged people to remember those who helped love them into being. And you're doing that just in your everyday expressions. We'll talk about your time in America, the ALA, the American Library Association. What does this mean for you, knowing the fact that you're helping to bring families together? And if anything, maybe if someone is, has, soul family instead of blood family, right? How you're helping people to connect through community and through neighborhoods in the process.
Well, I mean, again, it kind of goes back to what kind of art I wanted to make also. Family's always been kind of close to me, in my heart, and also community and friends and people that mean a lot to me. And so when I was, kind of developing my style of art, I remember being in art school and kind of learning all the tools in the toolbox, as they say. But I was kind of coming to a crossroads where I wasn't really quite sure where I fit in. What was my style? Because that was also a thing they talked about a lot. What was your style? What was your kind of like your image style, how you work and things like that? And then I had a conversation with this another artist, Chacon Waters from East Los Angeles, and he was talking about how he brought his family, his background culturally, and I have like a kind of a mixed background, but I sort of identify with my father's side because that's who I kind of grew up with more of the Mexican American side. And so I started thinking about all of those ideas and the art that you find in Hispanic culture and Latino cultures, and also food and music and design and costumes and dress and everything in between. And when I started thinking about that and how much I just really connect to it, and then merging it with the artwork, that's where my art and my career really started to take off. It was that moment. And now it's sort of paying back, because now other families that are kind of like my families see themselves in the work, see themselves in the books, know that, if you speak another language such as Spanish, that they identify, because also a lot of my books are published bilingually, including the new book that'll be out in Spanish and English. But most of my catalog has been published bilingually. And I'm very proud of that, because now we're connecting threads and connecting community, connecting people. And I love that. I love that through books and through children's books and through also connecting generations, because it's not just the kids reading the books, but it's the parents, it's the grandparents, it's the family that reads to the young ones. And so I get emails now all the time from people just thanking me, saying, John, my daughter or my son is just loves your work and is so interested in the books and things like this. And it's a huge honor and responsibility. So I feel so grateful again to be a part of this narrative, to be a part of this story. And it's also a lot of fun and enjoyable. And so it's hard almost to put in words sometimes, that the amount of emotion and pride you feel in being a part of this, and hopefully also inspiring the next generation and the next group of people to come up and give them a voice, because it's not just about me. It's also, you want to inspire future generations of people and creative people to speak their thoughts, to express themselves visually, and give them a voice. That's important to me too. I want to make sure that they find their path on their educational and artistic journey. So this is all kind of a part of my philosophy mantra, I guess. But it's a lot of fun, and I'm honored. I'm very honored to be part of it.
Based on what you've shared, John, and of course, having the opportunity to not only work with you, but be friends with you for many years, you're really helping people to not only connect with their origin stories, but embrace who they are right now overall, embrace where they came from, and this particular story embracing this particular moment, which is a perfect segue. Once again, we're going to be ready to crack the cover and dive into this moment is special, a Día de Muertos story. We'll be cracking the cover and diving into the pages of that momentarily. Again, award-winning artist, illustrator, and children's book author John Parra, our featured guest here on episode number 243 of the Children's Book Spotlight series as part of our summer reading season. Once again, we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, to head on over to John's official website, which we've included in the description below. If Amazon.com is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, of course, be sure to leave a 5-star review. Well, first things first, you have to make sure that you feel inclined and guided to purchase, read, and enjoy the copy. Your copy of this moment is special. And then if you feel guided and inclined to do so, to leave that 5-star review. Again, it doesn't have to be that complicated. If you like John's work, you just leave that 5-star review. That lets him know that he's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say here on the program, for those who love great children's books. Also, while you're at it, you can leave a 5-star review for John's newly illustrated children's book, Eloisa's Musical Window, which we will be, of course, talking about as well briefly. John has many books, so you could just continue to leave the 5-star reviews. But again, they have to really feel resonant with you in the process. Of course, if you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, and they do not stock their copies of This Moment is Special or Eloisa's Musical Window, or for that matter, any of other John's books, you can, of course, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about John's work right here as part of our summer reading season of the Children's Book Spotlight series, to be precise, episode number 243. And of course, for all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, you can connect with John via his official website, which we've again included in the description below, so that you can schedule your author school visit with your students as part of the 2025-2026 school year, or beyond if you are watching this episode into the future. It's interesting, John, from when we're recording this episode in real time, we are actually celebrating the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future. So needless to say, we have to embrace the future for those who are watching us and know what 2028 and 2030 and beyond looks like. As long as YouTube is available in perpetuum, people will be saying, hey, you know what? So much has happened between when, I first connected with John and when this episode was, or the Johns, I should say, and when we premiered this episode. And one last thing as well, we've included in the description below, if you want to see how far John and I have come over the years, John's recent trolley stops on the Children's Book Spotlight series going back. We have included all of them in the process because John has been now a 6-time guest, one for the thumb as the expression goes, on the Children's Book Spotlight series. The origin story of this particular book, John, again, is a little bit of a refresher. Those who are familiar with the world of traditionally published children's literature, books traditionally have the origin. It could be many years in advance. It could be minimum 18 months, as much as 3, 4, 5 years, depending upon the publisher, depending upon the illustrator, depending on the distributor, multiple different sorts of variables. Could you share with us specifically the origin story for this book? And because again, we're going to be talking about it momentarily, but was it for you, was it again that series of collective experiences that you kind of mentioned with your family over time? And if you said, you know what, I think it's time that I share this book in this way, shape, or form, or was it maybe a particular moment or two or series of experiences where you said, through this moment is special, needs to be birthed into reality?
Well, the story of this moment is special. It started many, many, many years ago. I had a discussion with my agent about, because mostly I'm the illustrator on picture books, and we started talking about writing and illustrating books and starting that process. And actually, this was one of the first stories that I wrote even before my my first author illustrated book called Growing an Artist. And it sort of stems from just as I said, I was growing up, and I was always kind of had this mindfulness mentality when I was sort of in a special moment or kind of going through something special. Or just being really happy at certain moments. And I started sort of examining those moments. Well, what made those moments special? What was so special about these things? When I started thinking about, and when I think about, when we live our lives and when we look back at some of the happiest moments, we'll find that it's sort of the same ingredients again and again and again. And so for me, those ingredients were family, friends, food, music, travel, humor, laughter, great conversations, just, a lot of the same things again and again that really kind of just touched my heart. And they could be like, not even verbal conversations, but just even quiet moments that you just sort of recognize something beautiful is happening, a sunset, a beautiful walk in through the woods, or something like this, or just a pleasant, wonderful lunch with a family member or friend. And so again, and the special moments, they don't last. They're just sort of these brief moments that you have, but you kind of carry them with you. And so this is part of the story. It's about mindfulness. And so like I learned that term later on, but again, I just grew up thinking this way. And but the other part of the story is, of course, Día de Muertos, Day of the Dead. And Day of the Dead is a celebration where you honor and love a person's life. You honor their life and celebrate it. And what is a life? Again, a life is made up of special moments, these special moments throughout that make up a life. They always talk about, if you want to have a really wonderful life, a really great life, start at the end and then work your way backwards. And what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to think about? What kind of moments do you want to have? And I don't even mean like maybe big, like grandiose moments. I mean, those are wonderful too. But sometimes just, what? I want to be a part of these, I want to be in a band. I want to play music, or I want to get up in front of people and share my poetry, or I want to take a trip to go see the redwood trees in California, or, just these little moments or these little goals or these little special things that you think about. I want that to be a part of my life. I want that to be a memory that I have. And so between those two things, this is kind of where the story originated. And I think I even told my brother about it like about 5-6 years ago, and kind of explained it to him. And now it's finally being published all these years later. And I'm really excited to get to be sharing it finally with an audience. And so it's been really exciting. And the feedback so far has been incredible. Just something that that really resonates and is special for people. And also, when I think about um, the sort of the special moments. It's special moments can be also times where we have to have courage, and stand up and speak our minds, about what we believe or is right. And so that's also part of it. It's not just, having fun and goofing around, also, or just enjoying things. Sometimes it can be kind of serious too. But I mean, it's all the emotions, all these special things that are happening, even all at once sometimes. But that's a part of this story. And again, just I'm really excited and grateful to get to share it. And I've done a couple read alouds already, but it's been exciting.
John, and I appreciate you sharing what it is you've shared thus far, especially I can sense and feel on a visceral level, having the chance to spend time with you, seeing you in your element. You treasure each moment. And there's many people, going back to the baseball analogy, right? The fact that oftentimes we want to hit the home run. We want to hit the grand slam. I remember, and maybe this is kind of how we're accustomed to growing up in life, depending upon, where you come from, what your background is. But for people, it's the big benchmarks, right? So for example, when you're going to graduate from grammar school, high school, college, when you get your first job, when you get your big break, when you meet the love of your life, when you get married, this is in no specific or particular order, by the way, when you bring your first little one into the world, when you have the house with the white picket fence, when you get your first $1 million, those are the ideal benchmarks, the perceived benchmarks. But, and I'll coin a phrase from learning from your work with Margarita Engle. It's long since been said that the best music is between the notes. And I get chills sharing that, because I really feel that we really need to have the reminder, because amidst the Kike Hernandez, I don't know why he's coming to mind and not Shohei Ohtani, right? We got a Kike Hernandez here reference on the Children's Book Spotlight series, but amidst the home runs of life, it's important to enjoy the sunrises and the sunsets. Could you speak to that specific thread? Because again, with all that's happening in the world right now, and we're not pawning this off on political administrations or whatever, the world, we always move through challenges, difficulties, obstacles, problems, stressors, troubles, worries. So amidst those that we're experiencing right now, individually and or collectively, why do you feel that it is important to have that reminder, that remembrance, that this moment, no matter what it is that you're going through, that even if it's challenging, that there can be a silver lining within that?
Absolutely. Like some of our most challenging experiences in life, when we get through them, can be a great asset to us, and develop a character within us that we might not have known we had. And that's why I say, the book, these moments are special. Like, it's not just also the most happy moments, although that's primarily what is going on in the story, but also the challenging moments and how we can rise to the occasion and continue going forward. I'd also like to say, like, when the book also begins, it starts with a promise. It says it in the text that this day begins with a promise, and I like that. It also ends, that the promise. It kind of ties the thread when you get to the very end of the story about the promise to remember our loved ones. When they're celebrating finally getting to the Day of the Dead celebration, promising to remember, promising to think about it, promising. Because that's what a day holds. It's a promise. It holds promise. And I think I don't know, I find that a beautiful idea. I think that's such an interesting idea, that each day we wake up, we have the potential to, not only experience special moments, but also play a part in sharing special moments, because in life, this is a collective. We're living on this planet, we're living in this world, and we have the power to do incredible things and to impact others in special ways. And even if it's just a smile or a compliment, a small gesture of kindness can be a special moment for us, for the person who's receiving it. These are the things that are also, important in life. Those small things. And again, I just find I'm a big believer in a lot of small things add up to big things in the end. Whether it's how you work, like people ask me, how do you do all these books? How do you accomplish all these stories and art and illustrations? And I do just one day at a time, I break it down, because it takes just to illustrate a book. When I go to school visits, I ask the students, how long do you think it takes me to do one book? And then they raise their hand, 1 hour, 1 week, or, one day. I said, well, it takes actually about 6 to 8 months to illustrate one book. And so again, you do a little bit every day, a little bit every day. And that way, I'm a big believer in accomplishing also, with little goals, little accomplishments every day make a big difference over time. And that ends up being a life. That ends up being a life that we celebrate. So this is, again, it's all kind of that also the journey is the destination. And, because sometimes, like you say, people are so focused, even myself, I've done this, guilty of this in the past, where you're so focused on these milestones that you want to reach sometimes. And you sort of set aside your own happiness. You set aside your own sort of inner peace and calm, thinking that once you get to those milestones, you're going to be, oh, that's when I'm going to be happy. That's when I'm going to be okay. And that's not usually the case. You have to start right now. You have to enjoy all those moments in that journey. Maybe it's your first time you're going to be, or you have an aspiration to make a children's book, and you have an aspiration to write, or an aspiration to do something, and you want to write this story. Well, enjoy all those moments along the way in pursuit of that sort of benchmark, and you'll find it'll be an enriching part of your life. It'll feel a much fuller, and you'll see this kind of world open up, and where others are sort of also participating in and getting to meet them. And it's just you find a gratitude in it that's just kind of very fulfilling. And I'm so grateful, like I say, to be a part of this journey and part of this story. And again, I want to make sure other people can find that journey as well.
There's so many super cool takeaways from what it is that you had just shared, John, on your end. One of the things right off the bat is you've been a great presence in my life to help me remember that the moments along the way are special. I still remember vividly, and this is one I always go back to, the time where we first met at the Western New York Children's Book Expo. I think that's what the working title of the event was called. I think it was back in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. And, around that point, it was a little bit before that, probably around like 2016, because PR from the Heart, we're celebrating our 11th anniversary this month, and almost in real time. But there was a point in time where I was primarily working with more inspirational and spiritual authors for like the first year and a half or so of doing PR publicity work. And then I made the shift to working with children's authors. And I knew that at some point that I had a story to share myself. And it obviously took time and a lot of faith and patience and practice. And, it's long since been said that you become the master of whatever it is that you're doing by putting in the 10,000 hours, and then you're still remaining a student at the same point in time, even if you are a perceived master, so to speak. But I remember that moment because you said, John, you have a gift, you have a series of gifts, and it's important to know that, with the work that you're doing, you'll get to where it is that you want to be. And then we fast forward to one of my other treasured memories and moments was when we were at the Sheridan Tribeca earlier this year, and we had copies of Walking Each Other Home, Zachary's Mission to Hospice for Children, in our hands. And it was almost like literally a full circle moment. So when you celebrate the current moment that you're in, those full circle moments have the ability to be that much more meaningful, that much more enjoyable. Of course, one of the things that we never do is we never like to give away the whole kit and caboodle. That's an old school vaudevillian term here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. There's so many things that I really enjoy about your news story, about this moment is special. One of the things is that you always help young readers and really readers of all ages to connect with food, right? And to do it in a very playful, enjoyable way, because a dear friend of mine many years ago had told me, and I still quote this regularly on a daily basis, that food tastes better when it's shared. So there's a passage in this story: my family gathers for a tamale, avocado, and egg breakfast. We feel close and joyful. It's a very small sentence, but it packs such a big punch, right? Like knowing the fact that, maybe we don't do what we did back in the day, and every Sunday or, every night we would gather around the dinner table and, we would all eat dinner. Some families still do that. Many families may not in the way in which we did beforehand, which is a little bit unfortunate. But just again, connecting and in the illustrations, like you see the heart of your artistry poured into the book. You really see the family enjoying the food, enjoying the time, enjoying the presence. And that's just one of the specific things as well, too. But again, continuing on in the story, you feel the emotion on a visceral level when the little one is running late for school, and he feels his heart racing as well, too. And again, helping kids to connect with their own creativity. This is a theme in many respects for all of your books. There's the passage: with a brush, I add colors to my canvas. A portrait forms. I like to speak in pictures. Very small little nuggets. You're not turning into, Tolstoy or Bill Shakespeare, right? But these very small, poignant things, they really tug at the heartstrings. Was there, in terms of the language and the verbiage, because obviously it's different when you're an author and an illustrator for a title versus if you're just an illustrator, because the author and the publisher, if you're just the illustrator, is relying on you to provide the artwork, whereas you're really helping to create and weave the fabric of the story when you are both the author and the illustrator. So could you share with us a little bit more about that element and the overall creation of the story, and how it was really important to have everything really blended in such a beautiful way, where literally when children, parents, families, educators, when they're reading This Moment is Special, they read the words, they see the pictures, they see the illustrations, but they feel the emotion.
Yeah, when I write, working on a book, the story comes first, and the way I wrote this one is I wanted each little phrase to be just sort of a simple phrase, almost like a thought that you were having. My previous book was a little bit lengthier in descriptive, and the way it was, the descriptive language was written out, and I think it fit in the previous book. But this story, I wanted it, again, almost like you were having a quick thought or a quick moment that caught you, that sort of described your feeling in that moment. And then also what was nice about this story was that we ended, or sort of repeated the last line, but repeated it in Spanish. It kind of provided sort of an extra kind of a cultural context about what this family and what this young character boy and the main character in the stories is experiencing. That there's also some depth, kind of a depth to the story. Like there's a family background and dynamic, and you kind of see that. You pick up on all these little details in that story. And then what's wonderful, like when you get to the end of the story, obviously they're celebrating Day of the Dead and they're honoring and remembering. But the very last page, I'm sort of addressing and now talking directly to the reader. And I'm asking, what kind of special moments will you have? Will you laugh? Will you sing? Will you dance? What kind of moments? And it's a little bit more a little bit more detailed, I should say, and a little more talkative than the rest of the book. But I kind of like that now it's sort of like when the reader gets to that part, it's sort of now becoming about them and for them to think about it directly. And I thought that was kind of a really fun kind of, I don't want to say a twist, but just sort of a nice way to sort of, you're not just reading a story about this character in a book. This story is now about you and what kind of experiences, that I'm directing these questions at. And so this is, again, the thought process of putting all these ideas together, it takes a long time, and that's okay. Sometimes you need to give yourself space to think about how to develop the story, how to pace it, how to, kind of build these sort of moments, because as the story, again, even though these are special moments, special experiences, they do sort of kind of have a meter to them, like in music, that it's getting more and more and more, trying to think of the right word for it, kind of leading up to something. And that was a definite deliberate part of the story as well. And so again, you use all these tools, all these techniques to give this story the kind of the emphasis and the impact that you want, and of course the artwork that goes along with it. Because as an artist, as a professional illustrator, that's really where my where I live. And when you do art, you do a children's books as an artist, that's a language. That's its own separate language, and you're not just illustrating what's on the page. You are complementing the text. I always say you want to find the complement to the text to express what's going on and to say what's not in the text, but what's as well. Show don't tell kind of a thing. If you can do that, that's also balancing out the story as well. And so you combine all those things. Children's books is not an easy thing to do. Some people think it's a children's book, it's so easy. A few words here, there, a couple images. But it's actually when you actually sit down, and you put all your heart and you put a lot of thought into it. It takes quite a bit of work, but the work is fun and it's enjoyable and it's a journey. And I love every minute of working on it because it's so interesting, And like I say, a lot of the stuff doesn't even, things, and don't be afraid to make mistakes or feel like, well, this didn't go somewhere or this didn't end up being there. Like 80% of the work that I did for this book didn't end up going into the book. That's all just sort of, it's sort of like when you watch a movie and you get the DVD extras, yep. Those extra scenes that never make it into the movie. That's in children's books. There's a ton of that information. There's a ton of that.
There's a lot that's on the cutting room floor with
on the cutting room floor, and that's all part of the process. And it's sort of you whittle it down and you whittle it down. And you're kind of editing your own stories and your own art and your own thoughts to make it the best book that you can. And then you end up with your final sort of presentation, and then you get to hold it up and you get to be proud. It's a journey. It's a journey that's worth taking and worth experiencing. If you want to take this journey, and it's really interesting to get to work on. And as you know, because now you're a children's book author yourself, and you've experienced this, and the pride you feel when you get to accomplish this also, it's really quite remarkable. And and the fact that it'll now connect with other people is it's both an honor, it's a responsibility, but it's also just, you feel just really good about it. And so yeah.
Well, the words that you share, John, are so poignant, because especially when readers of all ages enjoy this moment is special. There's always, when you have those moments, they create experiences. And then when you look back on the series of experiences, then you have the opportunity to really have that much more enjoyment, pride, gratitude. And this is one of the things as well, too, that it's important for everyone who's going to be checking this book out. Even though this is a Día de Muertos story, it's a mindfulness story. So, sometimes if someone writes a book on Thanksgiving, or they write a book about Halloween, or they write a book about Christmas, this could be a themed book. We want to assure you here, Little Forrest is reminding all of you, I'm all reminding you, John's reminding you, this is so much more than a Dia de Muertos story, because it's one thing to hear the term being mindful or mindfulness. It's a very buzzworthy kind of term in the world in which we live in, but it's another thing to embody it and to really be in the moments, to be in the experiences of everything. We're beginning to wind down our time with our featured guest here on episode number 243 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Longtime member of the PR from the Heart family, award-winning artist, children's book author, and illustrator, John Parra. We're fully immersing ourselves within the pages of This Moment is Special, a Dia de Muertos story, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Paula Wiseman and Simon Schuster Books for Young Readers. We encourage all of you, once again, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, to head on over to John's official website, which we've included in the description below. You can also head on over to Amazon.com if that's your preferred online vehicle of your choosing. You can purchase, read, enjoy, and review your copy of This Moment is Special, a Dia de Muertos story. That's one of the many ways that you can help John and let him know that he's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books. In addition, John's newly illustrated children's book, Eloisa's Musical Window, one of the top books of 2024. It is indeed still available. Of course, written by Margarita Engle. We encourage all of you to leave 5-star reviews for Eloisa's Musical Window as well, too, if you feel guided and inclined to do so. If you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, and they do not stock their copies of This Moment is Special and Eloisa's Musical Window, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on the Children's Book Spotlight series as part of our summer reading season. Of course, to be precise, episode number 243. And of course, all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, as you're doing your part to make and create treasured memories and moments with your students as part of this upcoming school year and beyond, connect with John via his official website, again, in the description below, to schedule your very own author school visit as well, too. One of the other things that I wanted to mention in our remaining time, John, and I think that this is something that I know that I'm getting much better with than I did beforehand, giving people their flowers while they're still alive. Oftentimes we wait until someone is passed, we're at the wake, we're at the funeral, we're at the celebration of life, whatever that necessarily looks like. And then we say, I remember this person and these were the good things that they helped me through, or this is what they taught me about life. And this is why, like, every time that I have the chance to talk with you, it's important that I give you your flowers. Because the number of people that I've communicated with you and through our experiences along the way, and just, within the world of children's literature, there's a lot of rainbows and gumdrops, but I've seen every now and again, there's some ego in the world of children's literature. And I do remember, again, going back to that time that we connected in 2018, and you were already further along in your path. I was just starting, and you took the time when you didn't have to. And I think that that's one of your many endearing qualities in the process. This ties into what I'm sharing about giving people their flowers, because we don't know how much time that we have walking this earthly plane. And especially in the midst of the busyness and everything, there's times where we may feel, well, I don't want to be all emotional and share with this person how I feel, right? Or, maybe as the result of, having bad experiences, you're afraid to open up your heart and share with someone how they feel. Or maybe there's that person that you haven't talked to in a long period of time, maybe a good friend who really made an impact on your life. And you said, wouldn't it be nice if you can reconnect with that person? Take the time, pick up the phone, send them a message. Even if they don't connect back with you, let them know how they made you feel in the process. Could you speak to that thread about why it's really, at least to take a second look at it, because sometimes people may not necessarily get it or understand it, but the need to be able to give people their flowers while they're still alive, as the expression goes.
Well, I mean, I always kind of, kind of gravitated towards that. Again, I always, I don't know, maybe at a young age, I sort of realized that, this isn't forever and I'm not going to be around forever. And also just the people around me won't. And so I try to spend as much time as possible with the people I care about the most. Like I say, family is always showing up in my books. It's always a part of, who I am, and getting to spend time with them, real time with them, is important. And we go on adventures, and we travel together, and we spend time together, and just letting them know that, or listening to them, is important. Being a good listener is one of the most underrated things you can be, I think, in this life, because everybody goes through things in life and struggles, or sometimes people are having wonderful moments in their life, and to be a good friend for them, right? So, because sometimes it's easy to be like that good friend, when somebody's having a hard time, but a real friend, they say sometimes, is when you can be supportive for your friend who's doing really good. It's kind of a funny thing to say, but that's sometimes some people feel funny about that. But to me, I always love when I see people also having success, or when they're just starting out, or when they're just they're struggling with things, like trying to figure things out, and maybe just me just being there, or me just kind of reaching out and saying hi or hello, or listening to them, and I can provide some sort of counterbalance to that, and help them, affect them in a positive way, and just appreciate. Again, also appreciation for um, for them, for who they are and what they do. It's not about being perfect. It's not about doing everything right. It's just you're finding something um, that you appreciate, that you genuinely care about, and you're saying this to them, and you acknowledge them, and you will see, like those types of responses to people, those moments, it can change a person's life. It can change a person's life. I've had people come into my life also that have given me guidance, mentorships, and we've had conversations that have incredibly, through their kindness, through their time, and generosity, that have transformed my life. And I hope, again, it's the old expression, my dad, and I think it's Maya Angelou, you don't want to go around life just having a catcher's mitt. You have to be able to throw back. I know more baseball analogies.
Yep.
But it's true, also, and being a part of life. There is again, another expression. A lot of people are afraid, because you're talking about life, and it is sometimes scary. And of course, one of the biggest fears is the fear of death. But what I think is even sadder than that is the fear of living. And that's where, I tell people, don't be afraid to die. We're all going to die one day, but but to be afraid of life, that's the real tragedy, really. If we're getting kind of serious about all this. But again, it's like, it's just, it's, we get what we need sometimes in life. We don't get everything, but we get what we need sometimes. And also just be a person that can give back and be a part of this life story is so important, because it's just a special moment, and one day that moment will cease to exist. And so be a part of it. This is not dress rehearsal, ladies and gentlemen.
Nope.
This is life. Get out there and live it. So,
and
that's
and the only way in which we can live life is through experience, right?
Yes.
And this is why it's important that, even though, and we'll quote the late Aaliyah here on the Children's Book Spotlight series, where even if you've experienced a challenge, dust yourself off and try again. the importance of being able to, even if you've been hurt, even if you've been wounded, whether it be in, relationship, just, whether it be with the relationship with yourself, if maybe the first part of your life is, hey, not that many as good experiences, you always have the opportunity to make today a very special day. We're channeling our inner Fred Rogers. What can we say here on the Children's Book Spotlight series? Just a couple other brief things that I wanted to mention as well, too. We always like to try to provide some useful information in the form of tips, tools, strategies, things that parents, caregivers, grandparents, educators can instantaneously implement after watching a Children's Book Spotlight series episode and utilize for themselves, as well as pass on to their children, grandchildren, students, the little ones in their life. For those, and this could potentially be the same answers to this question or two separate series of answers, but some people might say, John and little Forrest, easier said than done. Be mindful. Enjoy the moment. I'm going through this, that, and the other, A, B, and C. What are some simple yet effective ways to really learn to be in the moment, both for adults, and remember, kids' minds and hearts are like sponges as well. Monkey see, monkey do. If they see that, we're being attached to this device all the time and not being fully present, they're going to let us know. Little Forrest does a great job of that all the time, right? But what are some, maybe 2 or 3 specific ways that actually come to mind where we can, if we're struggling with mindfulness and being mindful and being in the moment, that we can shift that, whether it be specific practices, specific ways, specific mantras of sorts?
Well, one of the things I was kind of taught is like you can be, at the end of the day, you can write down 3 things that happened that day that you're grateful for. And they could be simple things. Kind of an easy way to kind of train your brain in a sense, especially if you're struggling with that, about, because it's so easy to get down on yourself sometimes and you kind of get into a loop, maybe some negativity. And so one of the ways to break it and be grateful and kind of be more mindful is just write down 3 things that you experienced that day. And if you're having trouble for the day, then do it for the week. Or, if you're more creative, you can draw these experiences out, or whatever your creative medium is, musically, if music is your thing, you can write a song or something's, a little bit more ambitious in a way, but something that you kind of document down, again, whether just writing it or you can be more creative with it, and kind of be consistent. The consistency thing is really, I know, it's key in life with a lot of things and how to be successful. And I mean successful in every way, not just in your work and your life and your family, but just being consistent and working on things, and also being a lifelong learner of things and reading books and reading other people's experiences of what they've gone through. And you realize, maybe some of the problems that you're experiencing aren't as bad because, this person that you've read about or learned about has gone through much worse, and you see their resilience. And you get inspired by that. And again, teaching that also to your family, to your kids, and showing, it's okay, support your kids if they try new things and it doesn't work out for them. And, showing them how to be resilient and finding ways to get through that is important. And again, you can, like I say, you want to write it down. You would just encourage and sort of what I find is also humor is a great way to kind of deal with a lot of things and also make you feel sort of in the moment. Because when you're laughing, there's a physical experience that you're actually having of laughing. So go see comedy, watch a funny movie, enjoy something, that puts you in a sort of a silly mood sometimes is important. We used to, as friends, even when we were, even in my teens and early 20s, my friends and I we'd gather together and we'd say, make a funny noise, and do these silly faces. But it was a part of just sort of, making these fun moments and experiences. And even I just recently talked to a friend who I haven't talked to in years that I knew who I used to do this with, and he texted me. He reminded me, John, make a funny noise, and I had to do it on the text. And he laughed and he laughed and he laughed. And again, but laughter also is like a moment that you cannot deny that you're going to be in the moment, because again, you're physically experiencing something, and that's a thing. And whether you're laughing at heartache or laughing at something silly or laughing at whatever you find is your sense of humor, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's a resilient thing, is what I was also going to say, because I think there's something empowering about finding humor in the world that sometimes can be quite crazy sometimes. And again, and it's also a special moment that you get to experience, and especially when you're laughing with other people. Like you say with food, a meal shared is always tastes better. I would also say that about laughter. When you and it's also very contagious. When you laugh with others, there's something that connects you together. Especially someone said, if you find your one of the ways to find your soulmate is find the same things that make you laugh. Because that's a big part of having a relationship, is finding the same things that you enjoy, in a sense of humor. And I think that was interesting. I think there's a lot of truth in that. So
I agree. Well,
yeah.
being able to, not even just with this moment is special, but especially through the pages of Eloisa's musical window, music and dance. If you have difficulties connecting with the present moment, or you're taking life way too seriously, or there's the huge laundry list that always includes laundry. If you ever notice that laundry is always on the laundry list, as the expression goes, but being able to connect with the joy of those moments through music, through dance, through food, through family, through togetherness. And this is why, this is a perfect segue, by the way, because we always channel different people here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. We channeled Aaliyah just a few moments ago, but if you remember, oh my gosh, the late radio disc jockey Casey Kasem, and he would always we've got a long distance dedication dedicated to. So our next episode of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, which, depending upon when you're watching this episode of the Children's Book Spotlight series, is either coming very soon or is now available. But episode number 51 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, David Newell, who of course played the beloved Mr. McFeely on the popular long-running children's television program Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, David Newell and I will be sharing, reviewing, and spotlighting both This Moment is Special, a Día de Muertos story, and Eloisa's musical window. So we encourage all of you to stay connected via our official YouTube channel. You can subscribe to our official YouTube channel again if you haven't had the opportunity to do so. And again, enjoy this, because we only have the opportunity to have John for such a few finite moments amount of time, but we'll keep the conversation going into episode number 51 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, where again, David Newell and I will be sharing and reviewing This Moment is Special, a Día de Muertos story, and Eloisa's musical window. John, we always, of course, like to look ahead, because even though, here we are talking about the present moment, and then we're kind of doing the opposite. We're fast forwarding and we're looking ahead. But, it's always important. One of the things that can give you gratitude in the present moment is knowing that there's something to look forward to. And it's a good way to look at it, instead of just fast forward past this moment. But could you share with us some of the specific things? I know that we unfortunately lost the iconic Los Angeles Dodger great Fernando Valenzuela, and I know that he's meant a lot to you, both as a baseball fan, and you've got a very special project that's coming very soon in the process with that. But anything specific that you wanted to mention about coming attractions that's headed for you into the end of 2025 and 2026?
Well, definitely. I just finished a book called Viva Valenzuela, about a little bit about the life of Fernando Valenzuela, a pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers, who meant a lot to me growing up. If you were part of that experience, which was called Fernando Mania, who was one of those celebrated baseball stars in our lifetime. They don't kind of come around that often. But also the fact that he was a cultural shift, especially in Los Angeles, and the connection with the Mexican American community, and what that meant for us because again, I was a part of that story and part of it. So it's actually about Fernando Valenzuela, and it's also about the community, the Latino and Mexican American community specifically around the Los Angeles area, and Dodger fans and everybody that loved Fernando. No matter what your team was, I've had people come up to me already saying, "Well, I love the Cincinnati Reds, but I love Fernando Valenzuela as well." And so he meant a lot to just a lot of people. And so to get to be a part of that, in fact, I was just at the American Library Association's conference in Philadelphia, and we were signing posters and talking about on a panel about it. So just getting very little, the beginnings of a promotion there, but really excited to be sharing that story. I'm also writing and illustrating my next picture book. And so the story's already kind of written already. And I'm really excited about that, and I'm thumbnailing out the story there, and I've already kind of got a title somewhat, hopefully, but I don't want to share it. Just we'll see what happens. But I'm really excited about that story, and of course, just a lot of events. I'm looking forward to, of course, this Moment is Special coming out on July 15th, and just getting to do book signings and meeting people and sharing with them these stories. I'm going to book festivals this fall, especially this fall. It's going to be very, very busy, and a lot of traveling and exciting times. And of course, I'm sure there'll be other things that are coming through that my agent is always sending me, and we're going to see which is the next adventure I get a ticket for, and take a ride with, because it's exciting. I'm so happy and grateful to get to be, again, being in the place that I'm at, and I never want to take it for granted. I'm really honored to be a part of this.
Well, John, this is that poster behind you is reminding you, and it's reminding us, it's reminding all of us to celebrate, because there really is a lot to be grateful for coming off the heels of ALA. We wish we could have had the opportunity to spend some time with all of our friends and neighbors in the world of children's literature. We'll be making an appearance next year in Chicago. We were actually in San Diego at ALA last year, but that's just another way of the kid lit community, the whole celebrating the moments that are special with your friends and your colleagues and your fellow neighbors that are within the industry. So I'm really glad that you had the opportunity to do that in the City of Brotherly Love in Philadelphia. When we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go. But fear not, there are many more magical trolley stops to come on the Children's Book Spotlight series, one of the fastest growing endorsements in the world of children's literature. It's similar yet different to, if you remember, the late movie critic duo Siskel and Ebert. When they loved a movie, they gave it 2 thumbs up. Well, Little Forrest always loves when we have the opportunity to enjoy John Parra's books in the process. And so Little Forrest is giving 2 paws up for not only Eloisa's musical window, but also 2 paws up for This Moment is Special. So Little Forrest, thank you for your contribution to this particular episode of the Children's Book Spotlight series. And again, you have had the opportunities over the years, John, we have that segment where we bring it back in the presence and the heart and the spirit of Fred Rogers. And he reminds us who, even though he still is no longer with us walking this earthly plane, and he did this in different iterations, ways, shapes, and forms, he reminded us, most notably when he received his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Daytime Emmy shortly before he passed from stomach cancer, through his time on The Neighborhood, when he spoke at college commencement speeches, all of that and then some. He helped to remind us to help love those, he helped us to remember those who helped us love us into being. And I know that we briefly touched upon it, and I know that I didn't necessarily want to, regurgitate that too much, but why not as we close out this episode? You've mentioned the connection that you have with your mother, the connection with your father, the connection with your brother. Is there anyone that you'd like to publicly recognize here on episode number 243, especially tied into the releases of Eloisa's musical window and This Moment is Special, that have helped love you, John Parra, into being for these 2 books?
Outside of my family, who I love to recognize in my books, I would say the teachers, the librarians, the mentors that I've had in my life have been invaluable and incredible. I said earlier on in this presentation that, we don't become successful by ourselves in
Nope.
life. We always have somebody there that kind of, at some point in our lives, will guide us to kind of where we need to get to. And sometimes they come in, just at the right moments in life, and we need those people. And so I'm always kind of mindful also that I want to be that person for people as well, because you don't have to wait till you make $1 million or you become this incredibly successful this or that or whatever it is you do in life. You can be that person to other people, no matter what, just by listening, just by encouraging, just by taking some time and sharing what you know with others. And so again, the teachers, the librarians, the mentors that have guided me throughout my life and the good friends I've had. Because that's the thing, you want to surround yourself with good people. And that's an important part of success. And it's success in every sense of the word, that you're going to be a happy person, a content person, a good person, and a good person in your work, and a good person with what you do and how you act and treat other people. So these are the things, the gifts that you receive in life and that you can give in life. And so I encourage, something to think about and be a part of is always fun. So, yeah.
It's long since been said that whether those individuals are near or far, whether they're still with us walking this earthly plane or shining down from heaven, that they're smiling. They're smiling on you, John, knowing the indelible impact that you're making on everyone in this world, especially children, parents, families, and educators. And as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books. Stay connected, because we're going to be having the opportunity, as John is, once again, he's always a lifetime member of the PR from the Heart family, but we have the opportunity to pledge our support even more so for the launch of this moment is special. So stay connected on social media, as we'll be sharing John's featured television interviews, press media coverage over the course of the coming weeks and months ahead, leading into and including capping off with Dia de Muertos. But again, when we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go. But there are many more magical trolley stops to come on the Children's Book Spotlight series. We've got two big things that we're really looking forward to as well. Several specific things of note. Episode number 250 of the Children's Book Spotlight series, just around the corner. Hard to believe, but the 7-year anniversary celebration of the Children's Book Spotlight series, just around the corner. We are currently in the midst of celebrating 11 years at PR from the Heart. Lot to celebrate. Our flagship event, Building a Culture of Reading in Your Classroom, taking place at the Mall of America, the biggest mall in the country. So it's a combination of lot to celebrate, lot to look forward to. If you are a children's author or children's book illustrator or a middle grade book author, just kind of like John, and you want to be able to share your inspiring story in the release of your new book on a forthcoming edition of the Children's Book Spotlight series, you can connect with us via our official website or any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen. At PR from the Heart, Instagram, Facebook, and X. Again, all at PR from the Heart, and our official website, prfromtheheart.com. As we mentioned beforehand, we just had the opportunity to celebrate our 50th trolley stop with David Newell, who of course played the beloved Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, just recently celebrating the 4-year anniversary of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, which is the sister program to the Children's Book Spotlight series. That is when David and I, as a little tip of the cap to his character, Mr. McFeely, we deliver heartfelt reviews of the newest children's books from the shining stars in the world of children's literature, traditionally published and self-published children's authors. The top books of the year are always featured on the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. So if you are a children's author and would love for David and I to deliver a heartfelt review of your brand new children's book on a forthcoming edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, you know where to connect with us, you know where to find us. And again, as we are now stepping into our 12th year of being of service to children's authors across the country and around the world, we've had the opportunity, the privilege to be of service to children's authors like celebrities, including Sharon, Lois, and Bram, the iconic co-creators of the children's anthems, Skinnamarink Dinky Dink, Skinnamarink Doo, We Love You, to the aforementioned John Parra, to Catherine Roy, to those authors who are just taking flight, whose journeys are just taking flight. If you are a children's author and are looking for dedicated PR publicity support to create a book media tour in a city of your choosing or a national book media tour, connect with us via our official website, prfromtheheart.com. Schedule your courtesy connection call. And again, let us see how we can be of service to you. Again, one final time, you can, of course, head on over to John Parra's official website, which we've included in the description below. Stay connected with John on social media. We've included John's social media platforms in the description below as well, too. And of course, if you head on over to Amazon.com, if that's your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, be sure to leave 5-star reviews if you feel guided and inclined to do so for both This Moment is Special, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Simon Schuster, along with Eloisa's Musical Window. As well, if you head on over to your favorite children's or independent bookstore, they do not stock their copies of This Moment is Special or Eloisa's Musical Window. Make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. And again, all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, you can make this moment and many more special moments to come even that much more special for your students by bringing in John for an in-person and or virtual remote author school visit. Head on over to John's official website, which again, we've included in the description below. But again, when we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go. John, before we officially put the bow on episode number 243 of the Children's Book Spotlight series again, I want to thank you, because you have been such a big, I can't even put into words the amount of support and the friendship and the gift that you have been. Your presence has been over the years, just knowing the fact that now, as I'm continuing to celebrate the launch of my new children's book, Walking Each Other Home, Zachary's Mission, a Hospice for Children, the fact that you were kind to be able to pledge your support in the form of an endorsement of the book as well. So I also, on that thread, want to continue to thank all of you for your continued support of Walking Each Other Home, Zachary's Mission, a Hospice for Children, having the opportunity in just a few short trolley stops to head on over to Warwick's, the oldest family-owned independent bookstore in the United States, to do a book signing there, voted by Publishers Weekly as the top bookstore of 2024, to be able to share my inspiring story at the Mall of America. Know that I appreciate all of your continued support. You can get your copies of Walking Each Other Home, Zachary's Mission, a Hospice for Children right now through my official website or also through any of your favorite online retailers. Same holds true with both, Johns. If you head on over to your favorite local children's or independent bookstore and they do not stock their copies of Walking Each Other Home, Zachary's Mission, a Hospice for Children, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here through PR from the Heart and the Children's Book Spotlight series. Again, we want to thank you for your continued support of PR from the Heart, for your continued support of the Children's Book Spotlight series, for your continued support of children's book authors and illustrators across the country and around the world, such as John Parra, who are making an indelible impact, who are doing such a wonderful job, doing wonderful work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books, for the pillars of our community, local libraries and children's and independent bookstores. But above all else, we want to thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world. One final time, we felt his presence, we felt his spirit. Whenever we are in this chair, whenever we are in our office, whenever we're in our studio, we feel the presence and the spirit of Fred Rogers. Did you know that Fred Rogers weighed 143 pounds during his whole entire natural adult life? You might be wondering, why are you mentioning this as you are fading to black, as the expression goes, as we channel our, was Fade to Black a Metallica song? Perhaps, maybe it was, but there's a reason why we're mentioning that. Fred Rogers knew exactly what he was doing. He was reminding us of our inherent worth and our inherent value simply by his natural adult weight, and of course, how he operated through the course of his life. As a little tip of the cap to Fred Rogers, our constant source of inspiration here through the Children's Book Spotlight series and PR from the Heart, and as little Forrest and John Parra were kind enough to spend some quality time with us here on the program. For this particular trolley stop, we share our favorite three numbers of 243 because we are reminding you that there's 2 letters in we, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. We are reminding you of your inherent worth and your inherent value, but we're also reminding you to remember that this moment is special, to remember that you are special in the process, that you are whole, that you are healthy, that you are complete, that you are liked, that you are loved just the way that you are. And don't forget, if you missed any of John's 5 previous trolley stops on the Children's Book Spotlight series, we've got you covered. You can see how we've grown and how we've become more mature in our elder years, as the expression goes, even though, the world of children's books keeps us grounded and keeps us eternally youthful at the same point in time. For Little Forrest, for John Parra, for myself, John Masiulionis, thank you for spending some quality time with us here in our neighborhood. We hope that you have enjoyed episode number 243 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Again, if you haven't had the chance to do so, if this message, John's work, have inspired you, if you now know that this moment is special, if you needed that friendly reminder, pass it along to someone in need. Pay it forward. Subscribe to PR from the Heart's official YouTube channel and share this very special trolley stop that you have just enjoyed, episode number 243 of the Children's Book Spotlight series, on your favorite social media platforms of your choosing. So again, for Little Forrest, for John Parra, for myself, John Masiulionis, thank you for spending some quality time with us here in our neighborhood. Continue to enjoy the summer reading season, because sooner than we know it, it'll be the back to school season and the holiday season, but enjoy all the moments in between. We look forward to seeing you once again for our next trolley stop here in the Children's Book Spotlight series. Thank you for helping us to walk home, the children of the world, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Goodbye for now.